A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
Hey, I'm Kylie, former NICU travel nurse and founder of Passports and Preemies, and you're listening to Clocked Out, Life Beyond the Bedside. This podcast is for nurses who are ready to ask, what else is out there for me? Each week, we dive into what it means to thrive as a nurse beyond the hospital walls through conversations about burnout, alternative careers, travel, financial freedom, and wellness. Whether you're deep in burnout or just craving more freedom, you're in the right place. It's time to redefine what life after clocking out really looks like. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, I'm so excited to bring back Melissa, who was on, I think she was on in the very beginning when it was still Passports and Preemies Talks. So Melissa is an American nurse working in England, and I get so many questions about how to work as a nurse in England. So she's a really, really good resource. We do kind of dive in more to like NHS nursing, their national health system versus private nursing in England. So if you're very serious about wanting to work in England, I would definitely go back and listen to the first episode I ever did with Melissa. And then I also have a blog post on my website that she wrote. So I would read that too, because she does use some terminology that might be confusing if you have not listened or read that post. Those are both in the show notes. So go ahead and do that and then come back and listen because we're talking all things England. Obviously, I have to ask her about travel in England. We're talking about, her loss of autonomy when she went to work in England. I guess reality, expectation versus reality, what it's like working for the NHS versus private healthcare. And she's super open, super honest. It was a really great conversation, and I know that you'll enjoy it. Hi, Melissa. I'm so excited to have you back. You are my second time guest. So Melissa and I actually, we ran into each other in London, of all places, which is so random. We got so random. We got to talking about you working as a nurse in England, and I thought now that you have worked for both the NHS and the private sector, it would be interesting to have you come back on and kind of discuss those differences. But first, I want to start by asking you, what inspired you to move from the United States to England to work as a nurse?
So it was my husband, actually. Funny enough, he's always wanted to live abroad. He studied abroad in college. So we met in college. We were pretty young and got married pretty young. And he always said, because I'm originally from actually the Midwest, from Wisconsin, and he said, I want to get out of the Midwest. I want to go live in a city. He would have preferred to live in New York. And I was like, nah, New York's great for a weekend, but I can't live there. So we decided on Boston. Moved to Boston shortly after we were married. Absolutely loved it. I say I'm from Boston now because we were there almost 8 years before we moved here. And that's where we'll go back. We just absolutely love it. So we thought, if we could do a move abroad not a move abroad, but a move across, the country, as just ourselves without our family, friends, we could do it across the world. So that's, it wasn't necessarily like I was planning to move to England as a nurse. It was actually just planning to move abroad to travel and to really see the world.
I think that that's interesting too, because I get, and I'm sure you get it too, so many people saying that they want to work abroad, but I don't think people understand, when it comes down to it, the differences in culture and especially in pay. And yeah, it
100%.
takes a lot of guts to actually uproot your life and move. So when you were preparing to move to England, what did you have to do to kind of mentally prepare for that change?
So I first started, so for the job itself, obviously, moving abroad comes with, where are you going to live? What's your support system going to be? Obviously, your visa situation. both my husband and I now are on his company's essentially visa, right? There are a few different types of visas. Actually, I would say for this question, just read my blog post that I wrote for your because it literally outlines, I mean, right? I did this 3-4 years ago, so a little bit of it is hazy, but I kind of do a good job in that post, kind of step by step, like what you need to do. But essentially, I started looking for recruiting companies because I didn't think I would kind of be able to find a job on my own. Obviously, just very, very overwhelmed by the whole process. But it took almost a year. So I think that's one thing people don't realize, it is a long, arduous process. Just with the visa application, finding a job, uprooting your whole life. It's not like you're moving across states, you're moving across to a different country that involves, how are you going to manage your money? Like, how are you, it's
I agree. Like when moving to France, and it's a lot different because like I didn't come here to work as a nurse. But yeah, it's like the little things like getting signed up for your health insurance, opening a bank
right.
card, getting a French phone number. Those are like, I mean, if you're motivated enough to work abroad, like those are things you'll figure out. But it's also things that I
Yeah.
think it's good to like mentally prepare for. So I know
100%.
that
Yeah.
when you moved to England, you started in the NHS. So for those who maybe don't know what the NHS is or haven't listened to our previous podcast episode, tell us what the NHS is.
So, England has a socialized form of healthcare. So, the National Health System, the NHS of, I don't want to say England, UK, I don't know specifically, but they essentially, it is a free, I want to say, for, obviously for British citizens, people visiting. Obviously, when I access the NHS, it is no cost to me. However, now you do actually pay with your visa. Every year of your visa, you have to pay a surcharge. So you're technically actually paying for it really now on a visa. But yeah, essentially it's you can access care at any time, anywhere. It's not like a private system like we have in the States.
How much do you have to pay with your visa? Do you know off the top of your head?
So when I had, that's actually a really interesting question because they have just increased it. I think within the last maybe year, essentially, I was one of the last groups to get in when it was, I think the surcharge was around £500. Now you think pounds to dollars, right? Because we always think in dollars because a lot of our money and whatnot, our accounts are actually still in the States. They've actually over like doubled it. So now I think with a visa, at least with a skilled worker visa, it's like over £1,000 a year. So if you're approved for like a 3-year visa or a 5-year visa, you actually have to pay all of that money up front, which I don't think people realize either. So my husband's on a 5-year visa. So to add myself as a dependent on his skilled worker visa with his company, I had to pay 5 years of the NHS surcharge. Even if, say for some reason we live before that 5 years or move out of the country before then, you have to pay it all up front. So yeah, it's, it is quite an expense.
Yeah, because that comes out to like about $100 a month. And then I guess like in the US, I was paying $180 a month. So it's like pretty
Yeah.
similar. But then when you go to an NHS like hospital or clinic, do you pay more or is that it?
No. So if you go through the NHS, you don't pay any additional fee. It's only if you access the private healthcare system here where you will be expected. And I think maybe we'll talk about that later, like private healthcare. But yeah.
Yes. But do you find that the NHS, like because you have worked for the NHS, so you've seen kind of the other side, I hear a lot on the news about like how the healthcare system in England is, it sounds like there's a fire, like, and that's kind of the news for you. But do you feel like the NHS is like a well-run system or it's like in shambles?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily in shambles. There are some, I think obviously some political parties or people, your certain views think that the NHS is like the best thing ever. And it is a really great system. However, I think just with the influx of the population and, just people getting older, obviously the resources. I think
Okay.
it's interesting. I mean, it's similar to the States, right? Like if you're in a big city, if you're going to one of the big hospitals or healthcare systems, downtown, that it's going to be really good. You're going to get really, really great care, maybe not so much in like a suburban or a rural area. It's similar with the NHS, but I will say you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
you don't really pay much for the NHS. So it really is kind of the bare minimum. Even now that I'm like 9 months pregnant here, I obviously have access to NHS, the private sector for during my pregnancy. And I have nothing bad to say about the NHS as a patient. I have received really great care, but you know, it's the bare minimum, right? So
Right.
if you have any chronic conditions, any, real health issues, you're accessing the system a lot, you may find it a bit cumbersome, I guess, and difficult, I guess,
Yeah.
is the
Well, I
best
think
is the best way to put it.
you put it well when you said it's kind of like accessing like a city hospital versus like a rural hospital. Like I think a lot of people can
Yeah.
relate to that. So you move to Boston, you decide to move to England, you get your license to work as a nurse, you get a job with the NHS. What was it like expectation versus reality going from working as a nurse in the United States to working as a nurse in England?
Yeah, so I knew, like, I tried to mentally prepare myself. I knew that it was going to be, really, really hard, right? Tried to mentally prepare myself for that. But I think it's impossible to mentally prepare yourself for something that you've never been through, never gone through. I will say, moving here, working for the NHS is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I think that's just because I think in the States, at least in the role that I was working in, I had done emergency nursing. I went to procedural nursing, which essentially like sedating patients for angio, and more specifically neuro procedures. That's a very specific, specialized area of nursing that actually doesn't even really kind of exist here. Like my job in Boston doesn't exist in England. So I was like, okay, I'll do ER. That's right. I mean, sick people are sick people everywhere, but even though English is spoken here, there's still a lot of cultural differences. So you're not only, it's not really like it was a lateral move for me career-wise. I almost felt like I was kind of, I don't want to use the word like demoted, but it almost felt like I was in kind of like a different career, or I was doing a completely different job. Just, I guess you really have to manage your expectations. You can't have high expectations. But yeah, it was really tough, moving to a new country. Thank God my husband was with me. I think maybe that's something we'll touch on later, but, trying to move here alone. But you have to have, a good support system because it's hard. It's hard moving to a new country. Now you're essentially starting a new career or a completely, different job in a completely different culture. And it's really, really tough.
I do want to ask something I'm curious about. It's going to sound like very simple, but just because like I worked in Saudi, so I do understand when you talk about differences in nursing, I don't think that people who have never worked abroad would understand. So I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
like really simple questions.
Okay.
So
No,
as a
go for
nurse,
it.
yeah, as a nurse in England working for the NHS in the ER, like were you allowed to start IVs?
Yes, you were, but you had to do like a certain training first.
Okay. Were you allowed to, like, I think in the US, you have a lot of wiggle room in terms of like medications. Like, are you allowed to kind of give meds the same way or is that different?
I think in the ER it's a bit different. So I had never worked on the floor. That's why I was like, I can't work on the floor. I've never done that before. So I chose ER. And I think obviously ER nurses usually have a bit more flexibility. So because of my experience, I was, technically for the trauma section of the ER that I was in, you had to, kind of go through like I think like a course or some sort of education, but I don't think I did that because of my experience. So in that section, I mean, yes, we were giving medications, but on the wards, or they call them wards, the floors in the States, it's actually very restricted to what nurses can do, which is really surprising. I think the reason for that is because even though you have to go through, every nurse that comes to England or the UK, you have to go through an online test, an in-person test, and essentially get checked off that you're okay to work here. Most nurses, I would say, or a lot of the healthcare staff in the UK is international. I mean, I'm not even kidding when I tell you, because my husband jokes, because he obviously works with British. Most of his coworkers are British, whereas mine, most of them are Filipino. I don't even think I worked with a single British, maybe one
Yeah.
nurse in my time in the private sector. Only in the NHS, they were the charge nurses or kind of like the senior nurses, but everybody else, we were all international nurses.
Were you able to like give patients, families updates? I think what I'm getting at is like I've heard, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's true, but I've heard that nurses in England fulfill more of like a secretarial role than they do compared to nurses in the United States.
Yeah, I think the doctors really lead more of the care here, and I don't know if that's just because of the education levels or of the experience levels, because a lot of the nurses come in here from all different, essentially backgrounds, experiences, and the doctors just, I guess,
Totally.
I don't know, or they trust that, yeah, so it's definitely, like I said, I don't want to use the word demotion, but
Yeah.
it's more like a cross between like a nursing assistant and yeah, that's definitely the case.
I feel like in Saudi, that's interesting because, like, I agree that I felt demoted, but not in the sense like I was able to do a lot more even than in the US
Yeah.
just because how do I say it? Like the nurses, it was a lot more international and there wasn't a lot of good training. So I was able to do
Mhm.
a lot, but I felt demoted in the sense that like I had no say. I just did what I was told.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I can't ask
That's very
questions.
much yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's very much
Like
the culture here as well.
I'm
Yep.
not supposed to really understand. I'm just supposed to do it, period.
Correct. Yes, you're more of like a skilled worker versus an actual, um, you know,
Professional.
career or
Yes.
yeah, like exactly, like a colleague, a professional colleague, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. So I guess what would be some, what were some positives?
Mm.
What are some, if any, what are some positives about still talking about the NHS? What are some positives for somebody who might be on this path to moving to England to work for the NHS? Like what would be something
So
good?
Well, first of all, you don't have to pay the surcharge fee for your visa. So when I started
Okay.
contacting recruiting companies, I contacted quite a few. I think in my blog post, I didn't specifically mention the name because I couldn't find it at the time, but I did actually find it.
Okay.
It's the Kate Cowig. It's
Okay. I've heard of them.
Cowhig. Yeah.
Yes.
So they were actually the only ones that got back to me, so,
Okay.
surprisingly. So they kind of help you through the whole process with getting a job, aligning you up with a hospital, in the area you want to be based on your experience, your nursing experience. So they actually do really help you with that. You don't have to pay the NHS surcharge fee that goes with the visa because obviously the NHS is sponsoring you, so that fee is waived. However, usually in your stipulation or your contract, if you leave before a certain amount of time, you will have to pay it back. So just keep that in mind. I think the NHS for workers, you have a bit more, versus like the private sector, you have your benefits maybe with time off are a little bit better, but your schedule, like I was working like a day shift, a night shift, a day shift, like my schedule, that was one
Yeah.
of the reasons I had to move because I was like, this is like incompatible with like my
Life.
my life. I moved here to travel. Like I can't travel at all because I'm literally like my sleep schedule is crazy off.
Yeah.
So that was a big reason, but also just because I just felt like I was kind of like it I just wasn't, satisfied in my position, essentially. I was just, like you said, just being kind of told what to do. I didn't really have any autonomy, which is really hard for me because the position I had before, I was very autonomous in my practice. So it's really, really hard. And let's see, what was the question initially? Oh my goodness.
I wanted
good things about the NHS.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? I want to give him a few more things. I mean, obviously as a patient, access, you can you can access it at any time. The thing about that is
like what you said about like having more time off. I mean, that's a huge, as long as you're not working day, night, I feel like that's a huge
correct
pro.
Yeah.
But okay, now I know that this is going to be a con.
Well, they will also train you. So your OSCE, that in person, they completely did like a whole training for me for that. I mean, obviously I did a lot of prep on my own with YouTube videos, whatnot, but yes, they do have a training course that they, because obviously they want you to pass. When I took the test, what was that, almost 3 years ago now, there was like I think only a quarter of people were passing it on their first try. So yeah.
And if you guys are coming and listening to this without listening to the first podcast episode or reading the blog post, I'm going to link those in the show notes because Melissa does a really good job at explaining all the steps to working in England. But I do want to ask you, I don't know if you answered this question last time or not, but this is going to be everybody's number one question. Tell us what the pay is for the NHS, because I know it's a lot less than nursing in the United States.
Yes. I wish I kept, I should have written this information down. Like I remember at one point I was like, I need to write this down and do like comparisons. And I never did. It's terrible. I probably have to go back. But yeah, it essentially it's a lot less. You're going to get paid a lot less than what you're used to making in the States compared to Boston. Living here in London, at least like rental prices is more. So, you have to think you're making less money, you're spending more to live here, especially if you're living in central London. It's like I said, if you're not coming here with someone, you're going to be obviously renting with a flatmate. And you really do. You need to kind of figure it out with your expenses. Why are you moving here? If you're moving here to travel and like see the world and are going to be spending all this money, then you kind of have to factor that in. I know my husband and I saved a lot of money. So this was actually, we moved kind of the new year, actually 2022, 2023. So during COVID, right, we weren't traveling at all. We had kind of saved a lot of money, and you will want to save a lot of money because there are a lot of hidden expenses, things you don't think about. So yeah, and you're not gonna have the same paycheck like you did in the States.
So when I interviewed, I don't know if I told you this, but I interviewed for a job with the NHS in 2017.
Oh, no, you didn't tell me that.
Okay. In 2017. And at the time they quoted me £30,000. Is that kind of similar-ish?
Yes, I think I started. So essentially you start before you have your registration, like you're an official nurse. You actually kind of start essentially as like a nursing assistant.
Right.
I want to say maybe my rate was like, I don't know why 34 sticks out in my head.
Okay.
So 34,000 pounds. Let's see if you equate that to dollars now. Just doing it on my calculator quick. That's about $44,000 dollars. Yeah.
No, I was like offended.
Which I think I was making more than that as a new nurse in let's see, what year did I graduate? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. This is my pregnancy brain that I can't.
I started nursing in 2014.
Over 10 years ago.
I was making, I was making really low because I was working in Kansas City. So I was making, I think about $45,000 US. And then I was travel nursing when I interviewed for this London job. And so obviously travel nursing, I was making a lot more. And then they quoted me £30,000. And I was like, wait, what? And they wanted me. So I did an accelerated nursing program. So it was only 1 year, which they were weird about.
Right.
And they wanted me to go back and get my master's so that I could come. And I was like, I'm not paying for my master's so that I can come make £30,000. But
that's crazy.
You guys, I have to say, like, not everybody is doing it for the money. So, I mean, it's obviously
Exactly. Yeah.
important to consider, but like, if you just want to go and do it, be realistic about it. It's not
Yep.
the most
Yep.
financially
And my logical
lucrative.
brain, I'm thinking because a lot of the healthcare, at least a lot of the nurses here that come to the UK are from other countries, they kind of get away with that because they, that is still a lot more money to them than what they would be, making in their own country. So I think, and I don't know, I've done like a lot of reading about it because it's just so fascinating. And I think essentially I think the NHS started with a lot of international workers. That's how it started. And I think it's just kind of always stayed like that. So, the salaries and whatnot have never, just because I think, like I said, you're more of a skilled worker. You're not really like a professional. So your pay is going to affect that or
Well,
reflect that.
in Saudi, they would pay, most of the people I worked with were also Filipino, and they paid them so much less than they paid.
Really?
So they actually
Oh,
paid
that's
nurses
awful.
based on the country you're from. So even the Americans were making more than the people from England. So it's like, obviously,
Wow.
Filipinos the
That's
least, and then it was
that's pretty terrible.
other European
Because Filipinos
countries.
are trained like in the American, they're trained as an American nurse. I mean, a lot of the Filipinos I work with, that obviously like they're all fabulous because they are trained in that kind of American way versus nurses in the UK. Their training is completely different.
The reason I feel like the way they tried to justify it was that because it's like what you would be spending in your home country.
Mm,
So like they're
interesting.
assuming that people are coming to make money and then like leave, obviously, because nobody's just going to willingly stay in Saudi Arabia. So I guess that's kind of the difference. Like people actually want to move to
Yeah.
England. Like nobody wants to move to Saudi Arabia. So their pay structure is based on like what it costs to live in your home country.
Wow,
So
that's
they say
fascinating.
it's not about training, but like I mean, I don't believe them. Like, I'm sure that that's
Yeah,
part of
right.
it. I'm sure. But also, they're not going to get
100%.
an
Yeah.
American that's going to go work there for what they do pay the Filipinos. And
Yeah.
alternatively, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Saudi's a hot mess, so whatever
That's
about them.
fascinating though. I mean, really, that's really interesting.
I do kind of want to now pivot. So you
Yes.
are working for the NHS, which again, for people who don't know, it's the easiest, right, to move from America to England and get a job with the NHS versus getting a job with the private sector. But now you have
Correct.
moved into the private sector. So tell us what your job is now.
Yeah, and I will just preface that by saying if you're wanting to move to the UK as a nurse, a lot of private it's all about your visa, right? So if you come with a partner and you have a visa, you may be able to find working in the private sector, but a lot of they'll say right on the job description must have at least 6 months or 1 year of NHS experience. Like they want people to work for the NHS before they work for them. So right now my job, I work, they call it a day case unit. So it's basically like day surgery, fusions, really weird like blood draws that we do. And it's obviously much better. I work three, they call them long shifts, essentially like 3, 12 or 13-hour shifts a week, just 2 different times because we're not open on the weekends or holidays.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, no, it's literally I hate saying this, but I mean it's like the best schedule, one of the best, nicest, I will say
Yeah.
nursing jobs I've had, really. And it's actually an American company that I work for, not saying that the American private healthcare system here is, elite, but cuz I've accessed, other private systems here and I think they're just as good, maybe if not a little better. So yeah, just I mean you just have so many more accesses to resources. I think just because there is more money. I don't know how much they're charging patients, but it's obviously a for pay structure. So, you are going to be able to find a phone number to reach someone to call, or you are going to have that medication, or you are going to have equipment that works to do your job. Because many days in the NHS, most days I would come in and something's not working. And well, I can't do that because I don't have the working equipment for it. So you know what I mean?
Totally.
So it definitely is like night and day, at least from, and it's all about perspective, right? And like I said, all of the NHS nursing jobs are going to be different. All of the private jobs are going to be different. But my experience, the NHS position that I was in compared to the private position that I'm in now, it's very different.
So, because it's an American company, do you get more similar to American pay?
No, funny enough. So it is definitely more than what
Yeah.
you would be making in the NHS. Maybe subtract like a week or two of vacation that you would get in the NHS. But obviously, with a better schedule, more flexible, like, ability to pick your schedule. Like with the NHS, I was literally given my schedule. Like I could request off the vacation time I wanted, but like that was it. I couldn't pick, can I have, how sometimes with nursing, like if you work long shifts, you can kind of pick, can I have like work like these 3 days in a
Yeah.
row? It wasn't like that in the NHS at all. You were literally given what you're given. Obviously here, the team that working with, the nurses are all fabulous and very accommodating. And, it's also a much smaller team. Like I think there's only like 10 of us or 11 of us maybe.
Are you still
So,
working with
yeah.
mostly international nurses?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think and we may talk about this later, but yeah, most of the nurses, most are Filipino, and there are like a handful of Americans working. There were initially a lot more when the hospital opened, but once their 2 and 3 year contracts were done, a lot of them went back to the States because the hospital wouldn't match. The hospital was matching kind of their salaries, I think, what they were getting in the States, still working in the UK, but they wouldn't match that, I think, anymore, is what I heard from some of the nurses. So they were like, well, I can't keep up, with my living expenses, whatnot. So they moved back to the States. So there really are in the whole hospital, like only a handful.
Do you have more autonomy in the private sector?
Much more, especially on my unit, because we are kind of more of a nurse-led unit, specifically with discharge. So essentially the surgeon or the consultant, will, and it's all about like, you kind of, in the US, I guess we have care plans or orders or things like that. We actually do work with Epic where I work. So we still have like orders and things similar if you work with Epic in the States, but the doctor will kind of put on his note, like at the bottom, plan, okay for discharge. Or sometimes they won't even put that for our patients because they just know our unit that we're going to discharge them if they meet XYZ. So it is much, we do have much more autonomy in our practice.
I think, discussing, both the NHS and private sector. I'm curious you have a unicorn job now. So let's talk more about the NHS.
Yeah, I do.
How did this affect like your well-being? Because you're in a new country, you're maybe in what you said, feel like you might be a little bit demoted and less autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like maybe you're not happy at your job. Like, how did this affect you on your days off when you're in a new country without friends and family?
Yeah. So when I worked for the NHS, I'm going to be honest, it was rough. Like I said, it was probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest things I've ever done. I struggled a lot. It like even makes me emotional now to think about it, because it put me in a really bad place. I had never experienced, going to a job, coming home and just feeling like completely, I don't even know what the word is. Just, I don't want to say hopeless, I guess. I don't know. Like it was really, really tough emotionally for me. But my husband was like, Melissa, we gotta stick it out. We, like we can do this. You can do this. I would literally go into work every day and like do like positive, like, try to have like positive energy. Like, okay, Melissa, you got this. You can do this. It's only 12 hours. Like, like you can do it. And then finally I was like, okay, we can't travel because of my schedule. Like, this is not like the life we want to have here. Like I need to find another job. And it actually took me a while because it's funny, even though I had like what I thought I was a very experienced nurse in the US, but here, if you don't have like, and my sister's, it's interesting because she just graduated business school and she's having the same problem. Like if you don't have the exact same experience that you had previously, it doesn't matter if, you're probably more qualified or overqualified for the job. If you don't have the exact same type of experience, like a lot of places won't even, they'll be like, no, you don't have the experience. And I'm like, but I've been an ER nurse for like 7 years and and a critical nurse for 8. Like, I know I have the experience, but it's tough just because of the systems that they have here, the way, and even in the private sector, it's very similar to that as well. I will say, I did get on my husband's visa then at this point when I was looking to go or leave the NHS. And obviously having my own visa, it was much better, much easier to find a job, right? Because then no one has to sponsor you. So that's a huge thing.
If you're listening to this, I'm like vigorously nodding along because I think not nursing related, but it's so interesting in France. Like Julian cannot pivot careers because he does not have like the same exact experience. And my sister was like a news reporter, then she sold houses, then she went back to reporting, and now she's in sales again. And my husband's like, that's so weird. Like she doesn't have experience with that. And I'm like, but I mean, once you get to a certain age, like you just learn and you adapt, and like that would be so frustrating. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I wonder if it's just like the mindset of like a European mindset, like it has to be like something.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
I don't know.
And I think
it's like can't think outside the box, like I don't know.
Yes. Even though you're qualified. Yes.
Right.
I think too, like I could really relate to like you getting emotional because it was the same in Saudi. Like I was there for 4 months, and in 4 months, like I don't think while I was going through it, I realized how bad my mental health was getting. But in the 4 months, like I gained 25 pounds. I'm 5'2",
Wow.
so like that's a lot. It was a lot. But I didn't at the time, Melissa, I thought my clothes didn't fit, obviously. I thought that they were sabotaging me on purpose, and the hotel was like, because the hotel I was at was doing my laundry. I literally thought they were shrinking my clothes on purpose.
Oh my God. That's really funny.
But I would like come home from work and just be so mentally exhausted. I was so angry at everything. And I didn't realize just how much work was like affecting my mental health.
Yeah.
So how long
it affects
did
your whole life? I mean,
Yeah. Because on your off days, then you just want to like sleep and not do anything.
Exactly.
And like,
I mean, right.
Yeah. How long did you stay with the NHS?
So I think it was a little over 5 months.
Okay.
I think a few months in, or maybe as soon as I passed my OSCE, I think I started kind of looking for jobs, just kind of here and there, because I knew, just looking at these like qualifications. Okay, I even interviewed for a similar job where I work now in IR. So I was in IR in Boston, and they still would not hire me because they were like, well, we can't teach you how to scrub. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's not going to be the whole job of it. Sure, I didn't scrub, in the States because we have scrub, techs and whatnot that's what they do. And they're fabulous because they assist the doctor actually in the, and the surgeons in these procedures. But I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. And I'm like, well, I'm glad they told me no, because I ended up with the job that I have now, which, like I really love all of my coworkers, my manager. Shout out to her if you're listening. She's absolutely fabulous. I mean, I joke, she pretty much like runs the hospital. She's actually manager of a few different units, and she's just really great. But yeah, it's interesting. And I'm sorry now I don't remember what the question was.
I feel like you answered it, so it was perfect.
Okay.
I do want to ask you, so you now, I mean, nursing in the US, nursing in England, and now you're doing like this travel planning, you're kind of pivoting. Will you tell us about your travel planning services and get into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I guess I will say I will start, I wouldn't move, and I know this is a strong statement and just my opinion, but I don't know if I would necessarily move to the UK just to be a nurse.
Okay.
It's, everything that we've talked about, the pay, the type of job you're going to have, you really have to have another reason that you want to move and you want to live here, right? You have to have another, I guess, kind of motivation to want to be here because, you're going to need it. It's going to be hard. And so my husband and I, the reason we moved here was all to travel, to travel the world. I mean, we had traveled quite a bit before we moved, but we were like, well, it's not going to be at the same level, here. Like you can go to Paris for the weekend or wherever for the weekend. And it's great. It's not as expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not as expensive, right? So that was kind of our focus. That was our goal. So when I kind of finally got out of the NHS and, my mental health went out, I was doing, much better, started this other position, that I enjoyed. Sure, everything, it's not perfect, right? But so much better than what I was doing. I felt like my brain, I had like the mental space and capacity to now want to travel and plan trips. And I had actually started a travel blog. I started my travel blog during COVID as just kind of a creative outlet, right? Nurses working in COVID, it was really essential. And so since I've kind of been in this, new role working in the private sector, I've been able to grow my blog. I recently, just this year, actually filed my brand as an LLC. So technically now have a small business and actually plan travel for clients as well, which is really great. I feel like it's kind of a natural progression from nursing, right? Because most nurses, you go into the nursing profession because you want to help people. And that's what I love. I love talking to patients, helping them, explaining things. And so now essentially it's just doing that, but with travel with my clients. And, since we've seen so much of the world and, really kind of, been through it. I mean, for a while we were traveling to a new country every month. So it was crazy. So I do have a lot of experience and just, kind of the know-how, especially. Obviously, Europe is kind of my specialty, and New England, Boston, where I was from. But it's been, I'm just so thankful because I think without moving to that job, I would have never, I would have never ended up where I am now. So it's been a really interesting progression for me.
What's your favorite country to plan, like to send clients to? Like, what do you get excited about when they're like, I want to go to this country, and you're like, oh, this is a great place to go?
Yeah, no, that's that's a really good question. Gosh, I don't know. I guess I would just say, places that I, because I am, somewhat starting out. I think I've been only doing this for about 6 months, maybe a little bit less now. I mean, really anywhere in Europe, because I feel like, or if people come to me, they're like, oh, well, we don't know where we want to go, like what we want to do. And I'm like, okay, like, you want to go here for this, this, and this, or here for this and this. And I think, just without my experience traveling around to those places, like I wouldn't know this information, and that's why, if you go to a travel advisor or really anything, a lot of certain ones have, certain niches and things like that, because it is hard. You can't know everything about everywhere, but I work for an incredible agency and we have, the best connections in the whole world. So it's like, okay, well, even if I don't know the answer or whatnot, I have someone that I can ask or, kind of collaborate with. So that's really exciting.
How would somebody hire you or reach out to you if they want you to help them plan a trip?
Yeah, just to email me, essentially. I'm gonna be I don't know if I'll be planning. I have a few clients I'm working on right now trying to finish before the end of the year. I kind of just sent out because with my pregnancy, I've actually it's been a bit of a tough go. So it's been only recently that I've kind of announced to people and whatnot, but announced to my clients, okay, this is, I'm having a baby surprise, and, I will be obviously unavailable from this time, but have a fabulous team and will still always be close to my email. So maybe if I can't, get on your request right away, there's always people I can contact. So probably after the new year, I'll try to get back into it.
So I'll leave for anyone listening, I'm going to leave Melissa's email and like all her social media and stuff in the show notes. So, okay. So where do you see yourself? I kind of want to wrap up. But where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, are you planning to stay in London? Do you foresee yourself still working as a nurse?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe ask me in like 9 months or a year off maternity leave. I don't know. But I mean, my husband and I have always said our visas are good for 5 years. So we've been on them for a little over 3 now. Obviously, you do get essentially a year of maternity leave here, but it's not paid. A lot of people are like, oh, the benefits, like, when you have a baby, you get to take off that's what my husband and I thought, but it's like, no, your pay is going to reflect that. And it's not that great. So I might, go back to work sooner than that. We'll see. But I think it's also hard. I think my mindset is going to change a lot. Having a child. I think one thing I will say about nursing is I really appreciate the flexibility and the stability of a paycheck. Having my own business now, having a small business and working for myself, you do, now that you're kind of on like that side of it or in a different, I guess, career move, you do appreciate those things about nursing so much more. So I don't know. I don't think I ever see myself, I mean, maybe way down the line, like not being a nurse, but at least in the next 5 years, it would be great if I could do it maybe like 1 or 2 days a week. And then obviously still run my small business, have my small business. Because I do really like my job. My coworkers are fabulous. And, there are still a lot of things that I do, still love about nursing. I guess that's the quick.
Okay. Last question. What would be the number one place in the UK that you would recommend people to travel?
In the UK, obviously everyone wants to come to London. And yes, London is great to see. It's kind of like, I equate London to New York City. Like, it's great for a few days, but once after a few days, it's kind of like, okay, I need to get out of here. Like, I always tell people, don't just come to London and not see England. The Cotswolds, I would probably have to say, is one of the most beautiful, unique places. You won't find anything like the Cotswolds, in the world, or at least, I mean, there are a lot of beautiful places in Europe, but it's just so British. It's so quaint. So yeah, I would probably say the Cotswolds. You definitely have to visit.
I second that. Yeah.
And obviously, I know all the best spots, but
well, when I go, I'll have to have you plan it for me. But thank you so much for coming on again, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. This has been fun.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Clocked Out, Life Beyond the Bedside. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you could take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow nurse who needs to hear it. For more on thriving beyond the bedside, make sure to follow along on Instagram and check out Passports and Preemies, where we talk travel, wellness, and building a life that works for you.